And here are our top stories for tonight. U.S. officials in Kyiv for peace talks. Ukraine may be forced to give up land to end the war with Russia. And Israeli airstrikes killed at least 28 people in Gaza despite a ceasefire in place. All that and more coming up on AWANI International. Senior U.S. defense officials have arrived in Ukraine to discuss efforts to end the war with Russia. The team is expected to meet President Volodymyr Zelensky later today after his return from Turkey. The delegation is led by U.S. Army Secretary Dan Driscoll and Army Chief of Staff Randy George, making them the most senior U.S. military officials to visit Ukraine since President Donald Trump took office in January. Washington said the pair are on a fact-finding mission for the administration. On Wednesday, Driscoll met Ukrainian Defense Minister Denis Shmyhal to discuss progress on a bilateral defense agreement. And Shmyhal welcomed a new U.S. package worth about $105 million to support the Patriot air defense system. The visit comes amid reports that the U.S. and Russia have privately exchanged proposals on a possible end to the war. Trump's special envoy, Steve Witkoff, and Russian President Vladimir Putin's envoy, Kirill Dmitriev, are reportedly involved in working on a 28-point peace plan. Ukraine faces mounting pressure to cede territory, reduce its armed forces, and forgo certain weapons under a framework reportedly put forward by the U.S. as part of efforts to end the war with Russia. U.S. officials now expect Kyiv to accept the plan, though Washington has not publicly confirmed any details. If adopted, the terms would represent a significant setback for Ukraine, which is confronting further Russian advances while dealing with a corruption scandal that has led to the removal of its energy and justice ministers. Kyiv has repeatedly said it would not accept any territorial concessions, with President Volodymyr Zelensky insisting that U.S. leadership remains crucial for achieving a just and lasting peace. There have been no direct talks between Kyiv and Moscow since July. Russian forces continue to launch attacks across the front, including overnight strikes that killed at least 26 people in western Ukraine. Even as momentum for negotiations appears to be building, Moscow has not shifted its demands. Russian President Vladimir Putin continues to insist that Ukraine abandon its NATO ambitions and withdraw from 4 occupied provinces, with no indication that these terms will be softened. Stay with us, more updates coming your way right after the break.
Kini Anda boleh stream hiburan terbaik Asia dengan View di Astro.
넌 지금의 날 보면 뭐라고 할까?
Cerita yang meraihkan kita. Karya yang dekat di hati kita. Stream semuanya di sini.
Happy belated birthday.
Pelanggan Astro kini boleh stream View pada harga istimewa. Add-on melalui aplikasi My Astro.
Welcome back. At least 28 Palestinians have been killed in a wave of Israeli airstrikes on the Gaza Strip, despite a fragile ceasefire that took effect in October. The Palestinian Health Ministry says a further 77 people were injured in the bombardment. Reports say a total of 4 strikes had taken place, well beyond the agreed yellow line that separates Israeli and Palestinian-controlled areas. The Israeli military said its forces targeted Hamas positions across Gaza in response to the group opening fire on its troops in Khan Yunis in the south. Hamas condemned the strike as a dangerous escalation and said the U.S. must uphold its commitments and press Israel to respect the ceasefire. According to Palestinian health authorities, Israeli forces have killed 205 people in Gaza since the ceasefire began, with nearly half of those deaths occurring in a single day after Israel retaliated for an attack on its soldier. Meanwhile, Israel has reported 3 soldier deaths during the truce. The World Health Organization says it has vaccinated more than 10,000 children in Gaza this month, taking advantage of the fragile ceasefire in the enclave. But that number is still far short of its target to inoculate 40,000 children in the first phase of the campaign, which ends this Saturday.
WHO Director General Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus said Phase 2 and 3 of the campaign are planned for December and January. The campaign is designed to protect children against measles, mumps, rubella, and other preventable diseases. In a post on X on Thursday, Tedros said the Gaza ceasefire is vital because it allows WHO partners to strengthen essential health services and support efforts to rebuild Gaza's badly damaged health system. But his comments came just hours after Israel carried out one of the deadliest airstrikes in Gaza since the October 10th ceasefire, killing more than 24 people.
Ongoing blockades must. United States President Donald Trump vows to bring an end to the war in Sudan after Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman asked him to intervene. Speaking at a Saudi investment conference, Trump says his administration has already begun working on the issue within 30 minutes of their meeting at the White House. Trump later said on Truth Social that the U.S. would work with Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, Egypt, and other regional partners to end the conflict and stabilize Sudan. He described the country as one of the most violent places in the world, facing a vast humanitarian crisis with shortages of food, medical care, and other essential supplies. The conflict in Sudan began in 2023 during a power struggle between the Sudanese armed forces and the Rapid Support Forces, leading to ethnic violence and mass displacement. For Saudi Arabia, resolving the conflict is a national security priority, as Sudan's long Red Sea coastline lies directly opposite the kingdom. The United States has approved the export of thousands of advanced artificial intelligence chips, giving major technology access to two state-linked AI companies in Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates. The move follows Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman's latest visit to Washington, marking major step in U.S. Gulf tech cooperation amid a regional push to lead in artificial intelligence.
The U.S. Commerce Department has authorized the export of up to 35,000 NVIDIA Blackwell chips, worth an estimated $1 billion from Emirati firm G42 and Saudi company Humane. Both companies are launching big-scale data center projects and will be required to meet strict U.S. security and reporting standards as part of the deal. G42 plans to build one of the world's largest data center hubs, called Stargate UAE, set to go online in 2026 with partners including NVIDIA, OpenAI, Cisco, Oracle, and Japan's SoftBank. The UAE's ambassador to Washington, Yusuf Al-Otaiba, called the decision another milestone in bilateral cooperation, reflecting U.S. confidence in the country's advanced technology sector.
The United States has approved two major military sales to India worth nearly $93 million, strengthening New Delhi's anti-armor defense and precision strike capabilities. The deal follows months of tension after President Donald Trump doubled tariffs on Indian goods and could mark a step toward resetting strategic ties between the two nuclear powers.
Under the deal, India will acquire up to 216 Excalibur tactical projectiles and 100 Javelin launch units, with RTX and Lockheed Martin as the main contractors. The State Department says the package will strengthen the strategic relationship with India and support stability across the Indo-Pacific. India already uses the Excalibur rounds in its M777 howitzer guns, but a new shipment will expand its stockpile amid rising border security concerns. This marks India's first purchase under Washington's foreign military sales program since ties soured in August, after President Donald Trump doubled tariffs on Indian goods over its Russian oil imports.
United States President Donald Trump has signed a new law ordering the release of government files on the late convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein after facing political pressure from within his own party. The files are expected to shed more light on Epstein's activities, though some information will still be kept out of public view. Attorney General Pam Bondi says the Justice Department will publish the documents within 30 days as required by Congress. She said the department supports full transparency. Even so, the release may not be complete. The law allows officials to hold back personal details of victims and any material that could interfere with ongoing investigation. The legislation also requires the department to release information related to the inquiry into Epstein's death in federal custody in 2019, which officials ruled a suicide. Trump had long been associated socially with Epstein, though he has repeatedly said he did not know about Epstein's crimes and had cut ties with him long ago. U.S. President Donald Trump says he will meet New York City Mayor Zohran Mamdani at the White House this Friday, marking the first face-to-face between the Republican president and the Democratic Socialist who won this month's mayoral election. The meeting comes after a bitter campaign in which both criticized each other, with Trump backing Mamdani's opponent and threatening to withhold federal funding if Mamdani won.
Trump confirmed the meeting in his Truth Social post on Wednesday, saying it will take place in the Oval Office on November 21st. Mamdani's team had earlier said they reached out to the White House, with a spokesperson saying the mayor-elect plans to discuss public safety, economic security, and affordability, key themes of his campaign. The two have long been at odds. Mamdani has criticized Trump's immigration crackdowns and Washington's support for Israel during the Gaza war, while Trump has characterized the mayor-elect as a communist. Mamdani will be sworn in as the city's mayor on January 1st.
Taiwan's President Lai Ching-te has publicly shown his support for Japan after Beijing warned it would ban imports of Japanese seafood amid a growing diplomatic row. Lai posted photos of himself eating Japanese-sourced sushi, a symbolic gesture as tensions surge following Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi's remarks that a Chinese attack on Taiwan could trigger Japan's military response.
Lai shared photos on social media of himself eating Japanese-sourced sushi, including yellowtail from Kagoshima and scallops from Hokkaido, while also writing the caption in Japanese. Taiwan's government has in recent years been subject to similar food export bans by China, including of Taiwanese pineapples and fish, in what Taipei has said is part of a Chinese pressure campaign. Foreign Minister Lin Xiaolong told reporters that China's bullying behavior, from trade restrictions to military threats, is too frequent to count, urging Taiwanese to support Japan by traveling more and buying Japanese goods. China, however, dismissed the gesture. Foreign Ministry spokesperson Mao Ning said Taiwan is an inseparable part of China, and no display by Lai would change that. Taiwan was under Japanese rule for about 50 years until its surrender in World War II.
The COP31 climate meeting is now expected to be held in Turkey after Australia dropped its bid to host the annual event. Under the UN rules, the right to host the summit in 2026 falls to a group of countries made up of Western Europe, Australia, and others. A consensus must be reached, but neither country had been willing to concede until now.
Australia has agreed to back Turkey's bid in return for its minister chairing the talks, a deal struck during negotiations at the ongoing COP30 in Brazil. The arrangement is unusual, as COP presidents are normally from the host country, and how it will work in practice remains unclear. The compromise brings relief to delegates in Brazil, where the lack of agreement on the 2026 venue had become an embarrassment for the UN. Australia had pushed to host the summit in Adelaide, co-hosting with Pacific Island states vulnerable to climate change, while Turkey proposed Antalya, citing its decision to step aside in 2021 for the UK's Glasgow summit. Had no deal been reached, the summit would have defaulted to Bonn, Germany, the headquarters of the UN's climate body.
That concludes AWANI International for tonight. Stay with us as we track the strategies and power shifts shaping the new global order. For more updates, visit international.astroawani.com and follow us on social media. That concludes AWANI International for tonight. Stay with us as we track the strategies and power shifts shaping the new global order. For more updates, visit international.astroawani.com and follow us on social media. I'm Amirul Aiman. Thank you for watching. Good night.